You may have seen these graphs being posted all over social media claiming to prove that there is no youth crime crisis, that all of this noise and fury over car thefts and home invasions and machete attacks is just a right-wing media conspiracy. There's countless examples of the reposts online, and this one from Christy Danfan, yes, an out and proud fangirl of Daniel Andrews, gives some pretty typical commentary. I love it when raw data debunks hysteria that works on gullible idiots who consume tabloid BS. Youth crime is down. That's the data. These graphs come from The Conversation, who claim to offer academic rigour with journalistic flair. And of course they want you to donate to them so that they can continue with their academic rigour and journalistic flair. But before you click their donate button, let's put their claim to the test. Because I've read the article that these graphs, this data comes from, titled, "Is Australia in a Youth Crime Crisis? Here's what the numbers say." And in my opinion, this is a piece of dishonest hackery that would make the ABC blush, and that's saying something. I'm of the opinion that this piece misleads its readers, and I'm going to name and shame The Conversation's editor-in-chief, Misha Ketchell, for this piece of deceptive hackery. The most charitable interpretation of this article is that Misha is a lazy idiot. But actually, I'm going to show you why, based on his own words, I don't think he's an idiot at all. Lazy perhaps, but not an idiot. Because I think his own words reveal that he's done this on purpose, and that this is his idea of academic rigour. We'll get to the article, the deception, and the real data that explodes this deception and proves beyond doubt that the violent crime wave is very real in just a moment. But first, my name's Topher Field. This is the Topher Project, and I help busy people like you to cut through the crap and to make sense of the nonsense that surrounds us. I am 100% viewer supported, so if you appreciate me bringing you stories like this one and holding the mainstream media to account, then please support my work by buying me a coffee via the button at topherfield.com. And do take a moment while you're there to check out the new website. You'll find my multi-award-winning documentary Battleground Melbourne at the documentary tab. Now, it's completely free to watch. It's won 14 film awards around the world, and it tells the story of courageous Victorians who stood up to Daniel Andrews and engaged in civil disobedience during the COVID lockdowns. I had the privilege of telling this story, directing the documentary. But let me be clear, this is not my story. I'm not the lead character or the hero. This is a story that was written by thousands of amazing people who stood tall when it mattered most. And I consider myself privileged to have been able to tell their story. Now, I made the documentary, but I also made a promise that I would make this film available for free online for as long as I possibly could. And I'm continuing to keep that promise with this new website, because on the documentary tab at the top, you'll find it and watch it completely for free. Also, check out the shop while you're there. You'll find all the new designs of t-shirts, hoodies, caps, stickers, and more. And of course, we'll be adding to the product lineup regularly, so check in from time to time and have a look. And all of that is now in one place, topherfield.com. And of course, everything that you buy will help me to keep bringing you stories like this one. All right, let's dive in and see what The Conversation have said, and more importantly, how they've said it. See if you can spot the deception in this article. Fewer youth offenders. Across Australia, youth offending has been broadly in decline for some time now. According to the latest Australian Bureau of Statistics data, in 2023-24 there were 1,764 offenders per 100,000 people aged 10 to 17, down 28% in 10 years. This includes significant drops in the offender rate across theft, illicit drug offences, unlawful entry and public order offences. The offender rate is an ABS measure for the most serious offence committed by the offender in the measurement period per 100,000 people aged 10 to 17. And here's the graph that goes with it. It looks pretty clear-cut, right? It was good enough to be posted and reposted all over social media as if this was a watertight gotcha that proved the whole crime crisis was a lie. Can you spot the deception? I'm sure you've seen it. But just in case Christy Dan fan is watching, I'll point it out for her. This graph isn't showing the number of crimes committed. It's showing the number of criminals. Offenders, not offences. The number of people per 100,000 who are committing crimes is down in that age bracket, which is great news. But that tells us nothing about the number or the nature of the crimes that these individuals are committing. This graph proves nothing about whether there is or is not a violent crime wave. But the conversation, well, they're counting on their readers being low IQ. The kinds of people who are just searching for confirmation of their pre-existing prejudice rather than looking for actual facts upon which to base and build their worldview. So for the conversation, this is good enough. And hey, credit where it's due. Clearly, the conversation know their audience well, because this did go viral despite not actually proving anything about what it claims to prove. Now, the author of this piece, the conversation's editor-in-chief, Misha Ketchell, does take a moment to address this in the middle of the article, writing, "The offender is only counted once, irrespective of how many offences they committed. So could the number of offenders be down, but the number of serious crimes be up? It's possible, but given the 28% drop in youth offenders over 10 years, it's unlikely." And then Misha goes right back to talking about the number of offenders, as if that's it. As if he's now dealt with that question, the question of the number of offences. It's unlikely that the number of serious crimes could possibly be up because the number of offenders per 100,000 people is down. End of story. This, apparently, is what passes for academic rigour, according to the editor-in-chief of the conversation. Academic rigour? No, academic rigour wouldn't accept a gut feel, it's unlikely. Academic rigour would look at the number of serious and violent crimes being committed to actually answer that question. Academic rigour would do something crazy like, I don't know, going to Data Victoria and actually looking at the crime statistics, which if Misha had bothered to do, he would have discovered that, and let me be clear, this is a direct quote and a screenshot from data.vic.gov.au. The rate of recorded offences, now that's as distinct from offenders, offences increased up 13.8% to 8,998 per 100,000 Victorians in the last 12 months, while the number of offences increased 15% to 638,000. Near enough. And here's a handy summary for anyone who's playing crime rate bingo. Serious assault up 16%, aggravated burglary up 22%. Robberies, up 17%. Motor vehicle theft, up 42%. Stealing from a motor vehicle, up 39%. Stealing from a store, up 28%. Weapons offences, up 12%. And family violence-related assaults, up 23%. But according to Misha Ketchell, that data must be fake news. There can't possibly be a crime wave because the number of offenders is down. And he thinks it's unlikely that therefore the number of offences could be up. Thing is, he didn't even need to look up the data himself. If that was just a bit too much academic rigour for him, he could have just paid attention to the other journalists who are clearly exercising more academic rigour than what he is. And I'm not talking about the evil Murdoch media or Sky News After Dark, heaven forbid. I'm talking about The Age, who admitted earlier this year that repeat youth offenders have driven a 13.2% rise in Victoria's crime rate, now at its worst in almost a decade. The latest crime statistics agency data shows crimes committed by children aged 10 to 17 rose last year to their highest levels since electronic records began in 1993. The Guardian, hardly a bastion of right-wing propaganda, reported in June, before the latest and even worse data came out, that Victoria's crime rate surges with youth offenders contributing to record arrests. The Guardian even provide a handy graph, just in case Misha has trouble with his reading comprehension. You can see crime rates were in decline, they bottomed out during COVID, and they have rocketed upwards since then. This violent crime wave is very, very real. And the crime rate data, as opposed to the offender data, clearly shows that this crime wave is a fact. And if Misha is going to say that they're wrong because his gut says that it's unlikely, then he'd better bring some damn data to the table, a bit of academic rigor. Maybe the real actual crime rate data, but he doesn't bring that, because if he did, it would prove him wrong. He obfuscates with the offender rates rather than the offences rates, and then simply says he finds it unlikely that crime would have soared if the number of offenders had dropped. Academic rigor, my ass. Now, Misha tries to excuse his lack of curiosity about the actual crime statistics by questioning the precision of the crime data itself, based on the fact that definitions of crimes differ from state to state. And he's right, they do. You can't just compare a stat from one state directly to the same stat from another state, because too often it's not actually a like-for-like definition of whatever that crime is. You can't compare them. That's true. But you can compare the rates within a state for a given crime, as that rate changes over time, because that's the same definition all the way through. But Misha tries to use the differences in definitions between states as an excuse for his total disinterest in the crime rate data, even from within a state. That is a misdirection, a look over there. And clearly his low IQ readers have lapped it up. Now, why does this matter? The media lying in plain sight about crime and its cause. Well, it matters because this kind of deception is then used by Misha in his article and by others on social media to justify their outrage about youth detention, about the justice system actually dispensing any kind of justice. And ultimately, people use this sort of misinformation to advocate for more of the very same soft-on-crime policies that created this violent crime wave in the first place. They are denying that the crime wave exists, and then they're advocating for policies that help the crime wave to continue. And in the process, they are condemning young people to a future of violence, where too many of them will end up dying young or growing old with a wasted life, with all of their potential destroyed and lost because neither the adult men in their young lives nor the government and the justice system were willing to pull them into line to save them from themselves by whatever means was necessary. These lies perpetuate the condemnation of our soft and crime approach against children. It's disgusting. It's beneath contempt. The conversation should be ashamed to have Misha as their editor-in-chief, because if this piece of deceptive hackery is anything to go by, then I consider him to be nothing more than a stain on the underwear of the journalistic profession, deceiving a willing audience who lap up his work for as long as he feeds their confirmation bias. Maybe that's what the new name for the conversation should be. The confirmation. If you see anyone sharing this deception online, either send them this video, or if you know that they won't watch this video, at least now you know how to respond. My name's Topher Field. This is the Topher Project, and this is what I do. I help busy people like you to cut through the crap that we get fed by the media and to make sense of the nonsense that surrounds us. If you appreciated this video, then please help me to keep the Topher Project going by buying me a coffee via the button at topherfield.com. And if you like my videos, then you will love my books, my DVDs, and my merch, all of which you will find at the shop button at topherfield.com. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. The algorithm loves you, and so do I. Please like, comment, subscribe, and as always, think free.